Welcome to Recognised, where we explore authority, credibility, and the gap between being good at what you do and being recognised for it. I'm Merisha Stevenson. Today, I want to talk about Jo Malone, because I think most people misunderstand what her story actually reveals. They see it as a branding story, or a legal story, or even a founder story. But psychologically, it reveals something much bigger. It reveals where authority actually lives. In 1999, Jo Malone sold her fragrance business to Estee Lauder in a deal reportedly worth tens of millions of pounds. The acquisition included the company, the intellectual property, and the rights to the Jo Malone name within fragrance and cosmetics. At the time, it appeared to be a complete transfer of value. Business acquired, brand acquired, name acquired. But years later, something interesting happened. When Zara launched a fragrance collaboration, they didn't partner with Jo Malone London. They partnered with Jo Malone herself. And that distinction matters enormously, because it exposes a misunderstanding many organisations still have about authority. Psychologically, human beings build trust with people far more naturally than they do with institutions. Research from Edelman's long-running trust barometer repeatedly shows that individuals are often perceived as more credible and trustworthy than corporate entities, particularly in areas involving expertise and personal judgment. And fragrance is deeply personal. Consumers were never simply buying a product, they were buying taste, sensibility, expertise, identity. In other words, they trusted Jo Malone, the person, not just the company structure around her. This is why authority behaves differently from traditional business assets. A company can own intellectual property, but it cannot fully own public perception, because perception lives socially, in the mind of audiences, consumers, and markets. And once authority becomes psychologically attached to an individual, it often continues travelling with them long after formal ownership changes. We see this pattern repeatedly now across media, business, and culture. People follow founders beyond companies, journalists beyond publications, creators beyond platforms, and executives beyond organisations. Because audiences increasingly build relationships with identifiable humans rather than faceless institutions. And this matters enormously for modern professionals, particularly founders and experts. Because many people still build their careers in a way where their authority becomes completely merged with their business. Everything becomes structurally dependent on one entity, which feels efficient until circumstances change. But the Jo Malone situation exposes something important. Visibility and ownership are not the same thing, and neither are brand and authority. A business can commercialise your expertise, it can scale your visibility, and it can distribute your ideas, but it cannot fully contain the authority that created those things in the first place. Perhaps that's why this story continues resonating with people, because underneath the commercial complexity is a very modern tension. The tension between what legally belongs to a business and what psychologically remains attached to a person. And increasingly, in an economy driven by expertise, visibility, and trust, that distinction has enormous value. Until next time, stay credible, stay visible, and most importantly, stay recognised.